Now we're getting married. Did you guys discuss how many kids we're going to have? Where are we going to live? What are we going to do? I mean, okay, I'm not going to be a teacher anymore. I'm going to be a racer. You're going to be what?
Yeah.
Do I really want to marry you?
And at that time, I was still working at Kimmel Auto Parts, which me and my brother and my dad started. And, I was delivering parts or being a mechanic on cars or building race cars. We took one of the buildings there we had, and I was actually building chassis and frames and stuff for street stockers and different things in the area. So, again, never even thought that I could make a living driving a race car. That's totally unfeasible. So, we were going along there. Yeah, we talked about all that stuff, about babies and, how many we wanted, and we both agreed that 2 would be a good number if we're
almost $1 million family. Girl first, then the boy.
Yeah.
I don't know, $500,000 family. I don't know.
That's about what they call something.
Holly, Frankie, just kidding. No.
But she, that was, we actually talked about all that stuff, as you should, and really discussing how they were going to be raised. And we knew they would go to Catholic schools and Providence High School, which is where Donna graduated, and pretty much had that. And then we let them make the decision where they wanted to go to college, and send them to do that. So it was tough, hard way to make ends meet, and
never dull.
Never dull. Worked hard at it, and 86 and 87 we won 2 championships in a row at the Charlestown Speedway, driving a late model that Buddy Rauch and I had built, and Dick Schroeder, and Terry Shirley ends up buying that car from us. And then later the next year, Terry asked me to come drive it, and that's how it all
The rest,
started.
as they say.
Well, and Jack Wallace, Jack
Right.
asked me to come and drive his car at Toledo in 90, I think it was, and then Terry and them went with me and to help us at that point. And then 91 we did a few more, 92 for Rookie of the Year.
Now let's clarify something. When I put in the book, you had said something, and I probably worded it wrong because you wanted me to correct it, and that when Donna goes to races, you said something about her being a statue. Let's clarify that.
Yeah,
what's the wording,
story,
the proper wording on that?
Yeah, that story came from back at the Whitesville Motor Speedway, which is in Owensboro, where
Just in the middle of nowhere.
yeah, neat little racetrack. I love the little racetrack, probably one of my favorites. But David and Mark and Jeff Green are all from there, and the Waltrops raced there, and so it's a lot of history back in the day. But we were there racing, and I had a really good friend, Sammy Price, and his girlfriend were there racing there too, and they were parked side by side with us. And and Sammy's girlfriend Camille she was a workaholic, and she was in the middle of everything, and she wanted to be part of setting up the car and all that kind of stuff. And so she's out there running around checking stagger and dirty and doing that. And Donna sits up on the back of my trailer with a lounge chair and a thing of tea and a book. And so somebody asked her, "Aren't you out there checking stagger and stuff?" And she goes, "I'm more like a statue here." And so that's where that story came from. And but man,
I probably worded it wrong.
No,
the
it
way
was
I
fine.
worded
And, yeah,
If you called me and said,
she
"Let's
doesn't,
change
she
that."
doesn't think she's a statue. I can assure you. But she would make us ham sandwiches and make brownies and have chips and everything for us.
But she's not technical. She doesn't know much about the car.
Could care less about that car.
So
and
why be in it, right?
Right.
Do that.
And but she took care of everything she had to do. And then many times I'd be driving home and I'd get sleepy around Corden. We'd go the Indiana route, and she'd take over and drive us home. And
drive the trailer?
No,
Or
just a car.
Okay.
Just a car. She wouldn't do the truck and trailer.
I don't think I've ever driven the truck and the trailer.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah, I've done that too many times. So, but no, she was quite a racer's wife. Hard working person for sure.
So we're going to switch gears here a little bit again. We talked a little bit about your time in IROC, but maybe stretch it out a little bit more. I mean, first and only guy ever to represent ARCA in IROC. Now, for the young fan out there that's watching, IROC in the early 70s was huge.
Right.
I mean, you had everybody and their brother in IROC. Pearson, Petty, Foyt, Mario Andretti, Schechter, Fittipaldi.
Yeah.
And then into as it got into the late 90s, early 2000s, contracts start getting in the way. So a lot of the best couldn't get in. But there were still great drivers in Steve Kinzer and Tony Stewart. And and then Sam Hornish was in your group. Maybe talk about that a little bit.
Sam had just won the Indianapolis 500 for Penske.
Oh, right.
And and Max Pappas.
Right.
People that truly were heroes of mine were there, even though I'm older than most of them. So, but they were still heroes. My cousin Amber, who was PR / whatever it took type girl to get the job done. She was really instrumental in a lot of things. I got on a lot of the NASCAR shows back in those days, and that was strictly her doing. And,
be honest, did you think, come on, this ain't gonna happen?
Well, no, no, I never thought it would. Larry Clement went to bat for me. He really worked hard, and he was beating him up from the Iowa side.
You don't want Larry to get started on you until you give him what he wants.
Amber's beating him up from the Eastern Kentucky side, and they kept hounding on him and talking with the guys, and it started to take a little bit of traction, and then they reached out. IROC reached out to Ron Drager and was talking about the schedule, and Ron was really good. He said, if you're thinking about putting him in, we'll change the schedule. He said, it's that important for us, for somebody like that to be there. So
absolutely.
It was a big deal. And I've said it before that we were walking through at Daytona, and that's the first time you get to see the cars. And my seat was down there, but your seat's sitting there on the ground. It's not in the car yet, and you literally draw for the car that you get. So they try to keep it as.
You drew like a car, so was it an actual diecast or something?
Well, and I think ours was Crown Royal, and I think it was in one of their real pretty purple bags they have or something. We reached out, and I believe it was a car that you drew out of it.
With a number on it or something?
Right, and I think that's how it worked. And so that would tell them what car to put your seat in. And I told Donna, I said, I hope this gets over with before they realize I don't know if I should be here or not. So, pretty special time.
It's not, they're sponsors, but your name is like as big as or longer than the door. It's like Kimmel.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, gee. You were in the advanced car for years, and then the port car, which stood out, but now it's my name.
Yeah. It was really, really tough when you saw it, or emotional when you see it there.
I was
for the
just
first
thinking
time.
that. Emotional.
Yeah.
Was it emotional?
Very emotional.
Don't mean we could cry again, but.
Yeah, no doubt. Very emotional. And, then to think that you're racing against these guys, because I remember back in the late or early 70s, I'd go to Daytona and with my dad, in February, my mom and dad, and we'd all get to go, and you see these True Value uniforms coming by, and then, like you said, Andretti.
Big fat IROC right here on the. Yeah. You can't miss it with the yellow and the blue stripes and red.
Andretti and Foyt and all the big name guys, and you just think, wow, that's really cool. And so it was nice. That was a big deal for me. That was definitely the epitome or the highlight of my career for sure.
But are you surprised that was the last year? I know sponsorship drives everything, but I heard Tony offered them to keep the $1 million that he won if they take an IROC race to Eldora, and I thought, oh, well, that's going to keep going. And now he's got it with the SRX series, and that's my next campaign, get you in the SRX series, but that's a whole nother. But anyway, were you surprised that was the last year?
Well, I was definitely disappointed. And it's such a money-driven deal. That thing paid $1 million to win, and
right.
then, so you got to think what it's costing to keep that thing going, and Jay and Barb Snorri was, they're getting a little bit older and stuff, and it was hard on them, and because they truly believed in that, and that was their baby.
That was their baby, exactly.
And, so Yeah, like I say, I wasn't completely surprised because you just never know where the money is going to come from, but you kind of hope that it keeps going.
Do you want to be interviewed too? You silly Bobby. It's okay. We'll be done in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Speaking of IROC, now you've got another honor that nobody else has accomplished, and that you're the first ever driver representing ARCA to go into the National Motorsports NMPA Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's a big deal. And now you're at that part of your career, of my career that, we're at the other end of it now. So, what kind of things like this. And my family was inducted into the Kentucky Motorsports Hall of Fame a few years ago. And me and Bill and Dad got to go do that together. So that was really cool. And now we get to do this. So, yeah, that's a pretty big, special honor for me. I'm not a big honor type person, but you'd like to think that you've made a mark in whatever you do. And
Frank Kimmel make a mark in a race? Yeah. Come on.
I got lots of marks. It's bad in my head mostly, but it's glad that whatever profession you're in, it doesn't matter what and when your peers and people that have written about you, that have watched your sport, or whatever it is you do, all come together and say, hey, we think you belong here. That's pretty cool.
Now, okay, fans, I watch plenty of YouTube shows that, the host talks about, oh, I did this and I did that. And I'm going to say this to make a point, in that Brian Hallman is on the board of the NMPA. And he got a hold of me one day and said, hey, we need to change this up a bit. We need to get different people in here. Let's broaden our horizons. Who do you think would be good for ARCA? And so I started giving him names. Well, no offense, I gave him Jack first, Jack Bowser. Now, not many people in the media like Jack Bowser, but I don't care.
Yeah.
Because I certainly think he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Absolutely.
No offense, I think he should have been in before you. Well, then the next name, of course, was yours. Well, Jack Bowser was not inducted. You were. So you were inducted over Jack. So how do you feel about that?
Well, it's crazy, honestly. But because Jack Bowser was a cornerstone, and if he'd have stayed running ARCA, he'd have won 200 races. He'd have been our Richard Petty in ARCA, without any doubt. So far ahead of his time in car preparation and way he went at things, hard-nosed, mean-nosed son of a gun, just...
and even into 2006, 456, the way he was doing things, nobody else was going to do it up until then the way he was still doing it.
Right, absolutely not. And
innovator, icon.
Yeah,
not exaggerating.
For sure. I'm not going to tell them they made a mistake, but they probably did make a mistake. But in all reality, if you're going to put somebody in, and I think this is one of your questions actually, that in any Hall of Fame from ARCA, you got to start with John Markham. He's the one that started ARCA. He was the one that helped start NASCAR too. So he's the guy. And but when you start talking about drivers, you got to think that
I believe he's in there. I have to check that.
Yeah, and he may very well be. But
he's in there.
But you've got Jack, and you've got Benny Parsons, and you've got Ramo Stott, and you got a lot of really good racers back in the day that deserve a lot of recognition also.
And that's it's funny you say that to segue into the next question. If you were on a committee and ARCA had a Hall of Fame, it sounds like you already answered that question. Who do you feel would be first to go in? And like you said, John Markham.
Yeah, John Markham, and without a doubt, Mildred and it wasn't.
I agree. You kind of almost have to put them in together.
Yeah,
in a way.
And it was, it wasn't glamorous like it is now.
No,
and
especially for them.
They worked their butts off, and I'm sure they spent a few nights sleeping in their car to get to the racetrack and stuff. So,
well, Markham did everything out of his car.
Yeah,
out of
exactly
his trunk,
right. Yeah,
literally.
That trunk was full, and there was a guy named Frank Kimmel that was head scorer and pretty much did everything that John didn't have time to do. Frank was right there doing it. So, those guys, without a doubt, being a big part of it. Bob Loga, kept through the real thin years, tough years, kind of brought ARCA back. He was a hard-nosed guy for sure, but
he bridged that gap.
Somebody had to get us through that.
Yeah.
And those were tough times too. You show up at a racetrack and you have 6-8 cars. You're thinking, how am I going to make a show out of this? And,
Literally 6-8 cars.
That's exactly
one
right.
time we had 9, I think.
Yeah, and that's tough as we see that across the country right now.
You got that backup car, pull that, and you got a motor, and who cares?
Yeah, we'll shove it around. We'll shove it around with a wrecker.
Yeah.
So Bob was good for that, and then of course Ron's done a phenomenal job with it. So drivers wise, as we said before, you got to thank Jack Bowser, you got to thank Iggy Katona. Iggy probably has to lead the way with all the wins and stuff, and then Jack, and then Benny, and then Tim Steele has to be there. Still. He's right there in all the records, and he didn't run very long, So just a phenomenal racer. So there's a lot of good racers. I'm very privileged.
But speaking of Hall of Fames, though, January's going to come around, and here comes Dick Bergeron up to the podium. Then here comes Scott Pruitt up to the podium, and here comes Shirley Muldowney. I mean, we're talking
true legends.
Yeah, well, and then here's Frank Kimmel. Well, thinking about that, what is that?
Well, if they put me last, the place will probably be
Save
empty.
the best for last.
No, they'll all leave by then, and that'd be okay. And then Donna will be down there telling me to cut it short. So, but yeah,
no, she'll be checking your grammar.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll have to practice. I haven't done speeches in a long time. So, but yeah. That it's still just remarkable to me to think that we're in the middle of that.